Good evening, Uladzimir, or good day or good morning, because as far as I know, in United States, currently in your region, it's morning.
It's actually morning. It's 9:32 in the morning.
Yes, sure. And in Lithuania, we have normal, let's say, evening time. It's 7:30. It's typical evening time. But never mind. In any case, good morning or good day. Shortly, I want to introduce you, and I hope that later on you will say some words about yourself. Uladzimir Slabin, research associate at University of Oregon in United States, Eugene city, if I understand well, from College of Education. And time period, as at least I found on internet, online, this information. Possible this is a little bit outdated information, and in case you will be able to correct me. And time period starting from 2006 up to now. It's a relatively long period of time. And please, Uladzimir, add something about yourself for our viewers.
You mentioned that I worked at University of Oregon. That's true, Vincentas, and I worked 14 years at Vitebsk State University back in Belarus, and then the same amount of time, 14 years, up starting from 2006 till now. It's almost 14 years. So
symbolical numbers, I would say.
Yeah. So yes, same period, co-extensive, both overseas back in Belarus and same period of time here in the United States and in university and teaching chemistry. Yeah. I moved to the United States in 2006 and was offered a job at University of Oregon, and I worked teaching chemistry, but mostly working at Center for Advanced Technology and Education at University of Oregon. It is a unit, research and outreach unit affiliated with College of Education. And how, as it says, how it follows from the title for Advanced Center for Advanced Technology and Education. It was founded in 1990s, and at that time, what advanced technology and education? Internet, of course, computers. And nowadays, it is virtual reality, augmented reality, or so-called pedagogic programmed aids. Remember, there was time that this notion was popular. Over all this time, the CATE, or Center for Advanced Technology and Education, has been working on grants which would somehow combine, incorporate, implement this technology in schools, and I was a part of this.
Okay, it's quite interesting. Before discussion, I came to idea. Just I remember that. Okay, Uladzimir has quite, let's say, different and large experience because, and mainly in different contexts. Because your first part, let's say, 14 years, you worked in one country, your native country, obviously, and it was one context. Different context, I think, including political context, environment, etc., etc. And after that, you moved to States, and this is, I hope that it's really a different context. And
I mean, different, yes, absolutely different context.
Absolutely.
In everything, it's just in everyday life and in content of teaching and principles and approaches, everything was different here. So I remember working at Vitebsk State University, so I felt like I was imposed this task to train, to prepare future teachers by all possible means. Must to mold a good specialist. It was task imposed on me, and I conducted this go into reality. Here, quite different. So just a person paid money.
Yeah, I just remembered one interesting situation. Obviously, I'm not professional in English. Obviously, not a native speaker, etc. But for example, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago in one conference, if I remember well, it was IST symposium in maybe in Portugal. Oh, or maybe in Malmö in 2018. It was one presenter, lady was from the United States. I don't remember, never mind from which university. And discussion was about different competencies, etc., etc. And every time she used the term smart. He or she is smart. Smart person, smart people, etc. And one local British, native British speaker started to argue, yes, what do you mean by this smart? What does it mean smart? Please explain, it's not clear for me, etc. And finally, why am I saying this? Finally, they both came to the same meaning, that smart, it means competent.
Oh, yeah. Well, one can you can characterize someone here as smart, and it's welcome. But you should characterize someone as not smart, because it's immediately no.
Yes,
only praise someone, only positive, not negative.
Yeah, and Uladzimir, in addition, because you mentioned about ICT, that okay, internet technology is more, and I don't like this word, this expression, modern technologies, because you know it's quite often everywhere in literature and discussions. You can find this term modern. I am usually asking for myself, what does it mean modern? What is opposite term modern? Is it computer modern nowadays? I think it's not. Yeah, and I want to continue because I found on internet, I decided to find some information about you. And I found some opinions related to you as professor, as teacher. And for example, it's not told, in 2012, one opinion from student, a perfect professor. This is about you. His class is very helpful, and he is patient and also use Skype, YouTube, and Second Life to help us. I like his class.
Oh, Vincentas, it seems I recognize. I remember this. This message it was most probably on ratemyprofessor.com. There is an informal website.
Ratemyprofessors.com, and mainly not so many. I see maybe 12 comments, 12 opinions in total. But however, except some, let's say, neutral or a little bit negative opinions, mainly positive opinions. And for example, second very interesting opinion, Professor Slabin is great. Many people here gave him bad ratings, and that's likely because they didn't attend his lecture.
Maybe, of course, in the United States, it's up to you to attend the lecture, and in most cases, the instructor just don't care.
Yes, sure. For example, another one. Professor Slabin is the most patient professor I ever met at University of Oregon.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
Yes, he offers extra hours to help students solve problems, and his classes completely and exactly cover the exams he gave.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, he really cares students. Highly recommend you guys take his classes. Pretty good.
Well, thank you, Vincentas, for reminding these messages. I almost forgot them, but now
yes. But in addition, for example, this one is really positive opinion. But first sentence saying organic chemistry is a hard class for sure.
Oh yeah, I agree with whoever.
But this professor makes things easier for students. Slides, notes, and practice questions are helpful as well. Yeah, I think that from these few comments, we see from one side complexity of chemistry, let's say in general, And
that's what I mostly taught. Yeah.
Sure. And what does it mean, for example, to be good teacher or etc.? This is quite interesting question. Okay, Uladzimir, let's go according to our preliminary plan. And this, let's say, maybe not provocative, but short question. Why chemistry in your life? How did you become a chemist?
How I became a chemist? Well, every chemist or chemistry educator has her own way to this. So in my case, it was the teacher, the school teacher, who actually helped me to make this decision. She was a talented teacher, and she taught a spectrum of subjects. And when she was our teacher and I was in 5th grade, and she taught botany, remember that's, well, concrete, not like nowadays, but it's concrete things, botany, zoology, chemistry, human anatomy, and so forth. So at that time in 5th grade, I thought I would become a botanist. And then I went to the 6th grade and she taught zoology to us. And I said, okay, I will become zoologist one day. And then 7th grade and 8th grade. So, and at this time she taught chemistry. And I firmly decided I would be a chemist. There was one competing subject that at this time, human anatomy. But chemistry somehow won, and I just chose this chemistry. And one more factor at this at that period, chemistry Olympiads, for school chemistry Olympiads, and I was a participant of them, and won. And it somehow enhanced my self-esteem, and I decided to grow. And I just thought to myself, I would be chemist. And since that time, I think that I didn't make a mistake. I didn't go wrong. Yeah, because chemistry just great, very number one. Chemistry is the central science. This is a well-known book. So I agree. That's my way.
Yeah, you see, let's say nowadays we can give many of examples. For example, well-known persons who are chemists. For example, Pope Francis, also chemists. Yeah, and some other previous Chancellor Merkel from Germany. She's chemist.
Yeah, and remember, former late Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Margaret Thatcher, was a specialist in organic chemistry.
What I am saying, chemists, the smartest people.
It's so pleasant to announce that we are the smartest.
Yeah, quite often, by the way, quite often I am saying to my students also, as an example, because it's in reality. For example, in Lithuania, we have, let's say, some educational or from education areas, some good professionals, let's say, professors in education area, but basically they are chemists, for example, or graduated in chemistry. It's quite important, quite interesting, or at least in physics. For example, you know, our colleague Professor Andris Broks from University of Latvia.
Yes.
He is solid state physics, yeah, and but he's very good in systemology, in education, etc.
You know what, Vincentas? I think the chemistry is a unique science, central. Yes, it is central. But what is special about chemistry, which is unlike, say, physics, unlike mathematics, or unlike languages or something? Because chemistry, it has a unique combination, balanced combination of theory and practice. So, say, from one side you have a fairly abstract, mathematically verified theory. On the other hand, you have a whole bunch of colors, lights, sounds, pleasantly, explosions, fragrances. Well, chemistry, it's not always fragrances. Very often these are odors. But what the combination of the theory and all these phenomena that this theory produces is just amazing. To me, this is harmony. It's always such a good combination, and probably people studying chemistry and embracing this unity of theory and practice, they somehow impose this harmony on their everyday practice, everyday common communication with people, management, and so forth. But I think that chemistry is a great.
Yes, but despite that, this is the most boring subject at school. According to different polls, surveys, etc.
Who teaches? You see, probably remember this famous Russian philosopher of 19th century, also a writer and great Democrat, free thinker, Alexander Herzen, used to say that there are no difficult sciences, there are only difficult presentations, difficult explanations.
Subject delivering, yeah, something.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we will return later on to this issue, but it would be, in any case, interesting to know something about chemistry education in the United States in general, if possible. Let's say whole picture, and mainly maybe high school, or as in American English you use this term high school or secondary school level, because it's typically, at least in Europe and then also in Lithuania, for example, if we start in Lithuania, student starts chemistry as a separate subject at 8th grade. It's a lower secondary level, and continue generally, let's say, in lower upper secondary level, but currently maybe in first part of gymnasium. But if possible, can you explain shortly about, or let's say to draw small short picture about United States?
Okay, first of all, I have to confirm, I have to admit that chemistry in the United States, as maybe throughout the world, well, unfortunately, remains one of the least popular subjects. So despite of this harmonious thing that I've just described, it's still it's not so easy to teach it in a comprehensible way. So chemistry at high school is taught in different ways, but what is good here, that a student or a pupil, a student has an opportunity to choose the chemical component. So a student has some number of subjects that he has to take, and they are compulsory, they are mandatory, you have to master them, and some so-called electives, and depending on which profile you choose. It's something which is in post-Soviet countries were popular as profile education. So the idea of profile education is implemented, and it eases if a person just doesn't have any capabilities to chemistry, he or she can escape or minimize this effect and not choose chemistry as a serious component of its education. On the other hand, if someone feels this vocation or this abilities to chemistry, they can choose and study chemistry really good at school. There is at high school, and yes, you mentioned this, usually K-12, this is informal word for American school, is divided into 3 parts. The first 4 grades elementary, then next 4 are middle school, and finally the last 4 years.
Excuse me, Uladzimir, because this is again terminology. Elementary equal to our primary, if I understand well, right?
More or less, yes. More or less,
because
yes.
It's approximately 12 years old students from 1st grade to 4th grade.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah. And so the high school, actually, it is what in Lithuania would be last 4 grades of a regular school. So
yes,
altogether,
because currently in LT in Lithuania we have 4 + 4 + 4 with system.
yes,
Primary, 4 years as pro gymnasium, as previously lower secondary, and +4 gymnasium level.
yes. So it's very similar, I would say, organizationally, it's similar to American system. So in chemistry are taught in this last 4-year period. And during this period, you can choose just chemistry, which will be kind of popular chemistry, just elementary, not elementary school, but elementary chemistry. And then you can choose AP Chemistry 1 and AP Chemistry 2. AP means advanced placement, meaning that if you study these subjects at school, successfully complete these courses, you can have advanced placement in a college. College meaning also university. So
does it mean levels? For example, because in our practice we have like level A and level B. It means 2 levels. For example, you can decide what level do you prefer to study. For example, chemistry or physics or biology, level A or level B.
Oh, the chemistry advanced. Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah. These levels.
It's like advanced level. It's more deeper, let's say, studies.
Yes. And so if you earned some credits, if you successfully completed these courses, you are in the university. You don't have to take, say, general chemistry. You already know it. You studied it at, well, a laboratory component, of course, is necessary, but the theory, you've already covered it, you've already mastered it. So you are there. What else? I would say here, of course, this process of chemistry teaching and chemistry studying at school, the government tries to somehow organize and stimulate it, but there are still a lot of problems. In 1996, there was national science education standards, and then in 2013 were introduced a new generation science standards, and then on the level of state of Oregon, the so-called Common Core standards were adopted, but they did not solve the main problem. The chemistry still being not popular and remain hard science. So I would say that teaching chemistry here at school and at the university has some peculiarities, some nuances, unlike chemistry was taught, say, in my first 14 years of chemical career. For example, people here in stoichiometry, in all those calculations, they rely on so-called conversion coefficients. In Belarus, there we relied on formulas. Say, if you want to know molar mass of a compound, you just divide its mass over number of moles, right? So in this tradition, in American school tradition, you say you can produce 2 types of coefficients. One is number of moles over mass of the compound, and the other is vice versa, reciprocal. So mass of this compound over its number of moles, and then you decide which of these coefficients you use, and one of them is removed and one is taken for. So in this system, well, this is a fairly simple example, but pretend you want to solve complex chemical problems, say involving concentration and so reaction in solutions. In this case, these coefficients can produce very long expressions. But what is good that if you cancel all these things, then you immediately understand that you obtain an answer with the units you really need. And this is good as well. At the same time, it's kind of too long to master a formula. It's easier, but formula, well, it's good if you understand formula, but it can be kind of just, you don't know this formula just jumped out of nowhere, and you just have to master it without completely understanding. So both approaches has different their pros and cons. I also wanted to say about organic chemistry. Well, to me, in Belarus, organic chemistry teaching was more interesting because it was balanced. From one side, you have reaction mechanisms, theory, electronic theory, effects, and then you have a laboratory part, or just not necessarily laboratory part, but popular description of chemical properties of compounds. Here, in organic chemistry, such a strong bias on electron theory and mechanisms, which many students just hate. Well, the position, the approach is that if you know the theory, you can predict chemical reactions, whether they happen or no, so without actually making experiments. But, well, not everyone accepts this. It's just a different tradition.
Yeah,
also,
I think it makes chemistry more difficult and complex in this case.
Sure.
More difficult to study.
It should be a reasonable balance of the theory of and practice, as I mentioned. And this practice should be just something stimulating. One more thing I wanted to when I just started teaching chemistry here, was I just didn't have a proper notion. Say in Belarusian tradition, probably the same, something like that in Lithuanian chemistry teaching. The difference between elements. So we have element as a type of atomic type, kind of atoms in the periodic system.
Sure.
But, and we also have what can be literally translated into English as simple substance. So simple substance, простое вещество, and element, and they are different, absolutely different. The thing is, and the problem is that in American chemical tradition, this element can mean both simple substance and element in more abstract sense that we have elements placed in the periodic system. And for me, it was, for one time, it was very difficult. I just stumbled on this and took time for me to accept, to embrace.
Yes, this is because I absolutely agree with you, because I like, for example, usually to compare different, if I know obviously different meanings, in different language, different notions, different terms. For example, currently I have with my master students research methodology course. And for example, when we starting to analyze this term research, what does it mean research? Because itself, this term research has two meanings at least. Research, to find something already happened, and to find something new to research. And in writing is different, writing format is different, yeah? And for example, some other words like investigation, I hate this term, as you said, this is criminological term at all. Yeah, study, exploration, discovery at some extent, right? And many, maybe more terms. And for example, in the Lithuanian language, we have only one term, tyrimas. Or like in Russian, you know, исследование. This is no other term. Everything is.
One funny moment here for that here in the United States at the university, when a unit receives a grant, research grant, the person who manages this grant is called PI, which stands for Principal Investigator,
Yes,
which
sure.
sounds like criminal investigator, like a police chief.
Yes,
But,
yes, sure. I recently finished my expert review on one project from Slovakia, because I'm expert in this agency, in National Slovak Agency. And it's typical in all forms, for example, also in European Union Horizon framework, etc. They use this term. It's a little bit stupid term, principal investigator. Sounds, why not researcher, I don't know, chief researcher or something like that, or senior researcher, or main researcher finally, but principal investigator, why not? Okay, Uladzimir, it's really interesting. But let's go further. And for example, chemistry is such a simple science. I'm saying like an opponent opposing you, right? Can really understand in a simplest level, for example. But in secondary school, as we discussed already, it is taught at least for 5 years. As I mentioned, in our country, from 8th grade till 12th grade, not for all students, but generally mainly for majority of students. And in reality, the whole course can be learned in a maximum of 2 years, but students have to get tired of 5. And some people saying often without any benefit, or such benefits is so small, etc. And they leave school with the same understanding. For example, they had before they started to learn chemistry in 8th grade. What do you think on this issue?
Well, I can again cite the same genius Alexander Herzen, who once said that there are no difficult sciences, there are difficult explanations. So, you know what, Vincentas, here, I think there is a dilemma. On one hand, you have to teach it somehow in a simple and comprehensible way that the person gets the essence of chemical theories, of chemistry as such. On the other hand, we can hardly teach chemistry without terminology. And this terminology just it has has to be memorized. Some master somehow, some things just
knowledge and maybe chemistry, chemical language in general.
Yes,
because otherwise it's not possible.
Yeah, some students here, they say that in fact we are studying another language, another foreign language, chemistry. But chemistry is not unique here, not special, because any subject implies mastering some terminology. It's just what you have to admit if you want to be in this situation. Say, for here, I immigrated to the United States. I had to master English, otherwise I wouldn't be accepted here. So, and same for chemistry. If you want to be a chemistry specialist, if you go into chemistry, you have to study chemical language. It's just a dilemma.
For example, I remember, and obviously I hope you also know, because you took part at least in some our conference, I mean national conferences in Lithuania, and maybe 3 years ago, just before pandemic time, we had our conference, and we worked with teachers. One, let's say, workshop was organized related to some simple phenomena, chemical phenomena, osmosis and diffusion, for example, and physics teacher started to explain from one side, and chemistry teacher from another side, and then came into different, let's say, somehow little conflict. But it's what is true, what is not. Different explanation.
Yeah,
of the same phenomena.
Well, we have to agree that chemical language is a kind of conventional language, and language of science. Say it is suited for scholar. Say the difference in English. It's suited for school, but probably not suitable for school. So it has been developed to teach in school, and some people criticize it. That people, so could you explain this in simple words? Okay, we can probably explain chemistry in simple words by employing analogies, some kind of analogies with this. But in this case, you will not understand this get this real chemical knowledge. In this way, Vincentas, I think that that you mentioned that to master chemistry in 2 years, probably one can master chemistry in 2 levels, but in 2 years, but its level will be very popular to be
everyday level, let's say.
Yeah, on everyday level, maybe, but to be a serious, just profound, in-depth understanding of chemistry, you have to master terminology, and of course, it should be. It will take more than 2 years.
Yeah, sure. It's really, but a lot of, let's say, studies, different level. It doesn't matter. We're not going into details, but like a general panorama that chemistry is boring, uninteresting, etc. What to do? How to attract? How to motivate? Now it's so popular. Motivation term, how to motivate our students?
Well, it's hard to motivate nowadays. Well, probably it has always been hard to motivate, but what I can hear, of course, the chemical content to prevent this seeming boring and so forth can be some interesting components can be added. For example, in my case, I believe that chemistry teaching can be improved if we make it more humanized. This term was popular back in Soviet Union, this humanization, and somehow more or less popular in Eastern Europe, but many times when I just enter into Google type humanization, the most of the inquiries that I receive, it brings me results from medicine. And in medicine, this humanization means something physiological, anatomical, absolutely incompatible with understanding of humanization, how we understand, educators understand it. But what I mean by humanization in chemistry, I think that eponyms should be used more often. I mean, people in chemistry, people interested in stories about people in chemistry, chemical anecdotes, chemical folklore, chemical jokes, and so forth. So not to provide all this time this really boring, abstract chemical.
And maybe at some extent academic chemistry, let's say.
Yeah, but again, I agree with you that you said that how to motivate. I was sure that I can motivate, but here's an example. In a chemical laboratory, so students are doing things, combining, working on laboratory glassware and devices. And I approached one that and said that, you know, it's interesting that now you are working and every single piece of this equipment that you are working with actually has its name, has its discoverer. For example, this is Liebig condenser, this is Bunsen, not Bunsen, but yes, it was Bunsen burner and a Buchner funnel and so on. And what this guy told me that, oh, these guys must have earned a lot of money of this. So it was so disappointing to me that I thought that he would be impressed that this guy, and he thought this guy, students, just first of all about money. It's so much. So the thing that we
so pragmatic approach.
Very pragmatic, yeah. And this pedagogical measures that we are implying sometimes, they can be unpredictable. We don't know. It may work or it may fail.
Yeah, but again, returning back to your, let's say, initial idea, how you became and why you became or why chemistry in your life, I can say shortly by myself, on my own example, it's approximately the same. I had very nice, let's say smart, I would say smart chemistry teacher in secondary school. And it was, let's say, a great example for me. Obviously, she was also together chemist and biology teacher at the same time. Yeah, but nevertheless, I decided to study this program. And I decided to study chemistry and biology at university. It was very, let's say, great example. So somehow, yeah, but what I want to, let's say, somehow to argue with you, okay, motivation, encouragement, and now it's popular, engagement, right? But science should be fun, chemistry should be fun. In general, learning, teaching should be fun, like in theater, right? My question is, why do we need to entertain young people? It's entertainment. It's not teaching, not learning.
Yeah, that's true, and it's very symptomatic that you mentioned. And I also sharing my experience with colleagues, and they testify that very often it's popular to question here to ask, did you have fun? I mean, if you when you completed the lesson, or so did you have fun? Did you have fun? I mean, did you enjoy this course? And nobody, or very few people, say that, oh, I work hard. I work hard. And if they say I worked hard, and usually in a kind of negative way, that I had to work, the instructor made me work.
Yeah, I remember in this context, some of my colleagues, obviously from abroad, quite often saying to me, "Not stop working, just enjoy life. Enjoy life." I am asking, what does it mean enjoy? For me, it's not understandable. Enjoy life. I would say not enjoy, but for example, to celebrate life. I do agree. To celebrate life, it's okay. It's understandable, but what does mean enjoy?
Well, it's such things, and especially in pedagogical science, when terms are fluffy, and some people spend lives just discussing these methodological terms of what they mean. So, but in this case, yeah, what do you mean by enjoy? But I would say that as we progress, as we advance through any science, in chemistry included, our understanding of enjoyment also changes. Say, for me, to take a chemistry class at high school would be just to have fun, means to see these explosions, these chemical experiments. Oh, it was orange and it became green. Oh, I enjoyed it, how it could be. Whereas, say 10 years later, when I graduated from the university and I'm a chemistry teacher, for my understanding of chemistry enjoyment would be much more sophisticated. It would include knowing some theory. And for this reason, if you, for example, I remember at university, a teacher trying to entertain us. So he shared a chemical anecdote with us, where the main characters were chemists. And you know what? He was just openly presenting this anecdote in hope that we would share his joy and humor. But disappointingly for him, at that time, actually, nobody of us got this humor. Nobody understood this anecdote. So here's the difference of enjoyment and this level.
Obviously. Yeah, but let's go to my next, let's say, question or just thinking. It seems that the most important thing is to teach to think. to teach, to think, and to solve different problems, to feel, and also to find some connections between or among things, to be able to adapt solution of one problem to another, etc., etc. In other words, I want to say that thinking in general, it's very important. Mathematical, logical thinking, it's important from early grades. For example, from primary school level, etc. And in beginning, I said about our previous discussion with colleague professor of psychology from Armenian Pedagogical University in Armenia, in Yerevan. And he, let's say, emphasized this importance so much, let's say, that algorithmical thinking, you know, in Armenia, its obligatory subject is chess game.
Oh, I didn't know. Interesting.
From primary school, it's obligatory subject at school. Yeah, and in order to develop thinking abilities, algorithmical thinking, systemic thinking, logical thinking, etc. Can you say something on this issue?
Okay. Again, I'm in doubt. I doubt at all that you can force someone thinking in a special way. So if you start a chemical lesson and you make or trying to make your students thinking on all 45 years, they are thinking as you want it. No, it's probably utopian. No, it's not possible. But I agree. And chemical thinking, algorithmical, it can be algorithmical if a person is trained to think that way. But to me, what distinguishes chemical thinking out of other types of thinking is employing this category of mole. A physicist, he or she can use the word object, or let's say kilograms or newtons, watts, amperes, maybe. For chemists, it's central. It's a paramount to employ moles. So wherever chemical process takes place, first of all, a chemist should ask just how many moles of this compound reacted with this compound. Did they react completely, or is there something in excess? So moles, and out of moles, he or she can derive then grams, kilograms, maybe liters, cubic meters, if these are gases, or using density also for solids, but moles are central. This is how a chemist should think in moles and so forth.
Yes, but obviously, but thinking in general, it's learning chemistry. It's not only chemistry. It's obviously important. Not only just entertainment or to have some fun. Let's say to enjoy something. And for example, when you know very well that quite often, maybe not correct, quite often, every day, it's my everyday activity to review papers, to read different papers. And very often I found this, let's say, like two, not balancing, but two sides: traditional way, or traditional teaching, or traditional approach, and so-called modern approach. Quite often the question arises: what does it mean, modern approach? Okay, modern approach. Project-based learning, or inquiry-based learning, or let's say using some, for example, recently I reviewed paper using Kahoot, yeah, or different platforms, different games. It's modern. And what does it mean traditional? For example, I think you agree with me that we need, in any case, we need some level of memorization. We need to memorize something. For example, in chemistry, we should learn elements, we should learn symbols. some simple principles, some orders, some laws, etc., etc. We need to get some level by our memory, by memorizing something. Otherwise, like analogy, I am saying, if my stomach is empty, digestion process is not going on, nothing happening.
Sure.
Yeah, we need to put inside something at least in order to start digestion process. It's something, let's say, in brain, because nowadays maybe it's not maybe fully correct to say that I am learning or you are learning. Maybe my brain is learning. Brain-based learning.
Brain-based. Well, I think Vincentas, unless your activity, unless there is some physical activity involved, yes, then only your brain is learning. If, for example, athlete, I think would be insulted when characterized as not brain learning. So that's what trying to say, that brain learning, yeah, the good interesting term here. Yeah.
Another quite, let's say, I would say at some extent traditional maybe thing that basically in the last years of the secondary school, main focus is how to properly prepare for exams, for final exams. It doesn't matter school exams or state exams like in Lithuania, because we have both versions, school exam and state exams, and how to score as many points as possible. And after that, okay, I forget chemistry, I forget physics, biology, just I am learning in order to be successful in exams.
Vincentas, I would say that the same is observed here in the United States. So people are mostly trained at school, especially for taking the exam, taking tests and earning a great amount of points. And all those point-based entrance examination and graduation examination they are common, and they are criticized very well. But you know what? Probably in your case, the level of this testing is still decent. Here, for example, this in my state, in Oregon. So what I learned, I read, it was although it happened in summer, but I read about this in fall. So on YouTube there was a article here. Oregon governor signs bill ending reading and math proficiency requirements for graduation. In other terms, so to graduate from a school, you don't have to be tested on math and reading. And it was the motivation, why they adopted this bill was interesting. So someone said that existing proficiency levels for math and reading presented an unfair challenge for students who do not test well. It means that if you give a test to a person and he fails it, in this way, this person is humiliated, and you just punish him or her. So they say, who do not test well, the new standards for graduation would aid Oregon's Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander, tribal, and students of color. So instead of training students, we better lower the level of testing. I think it's not right.
Yeah, but it's again returning to this point that it seems like a one-time action. For example, after that, young people, not all of them, but at least part of them, entering universities, or colleges, and somehow they should start from, maybe not from zero, but
Right.
Not so far from zero. Not so far from zero. I want to illustrate with one example. Okay, maybe 2 years ago, we performed one research, one study, empirical study with our first-year students studying in primary education programs and preschool education programs, and we wanted to know student science content knowledge. General science content knowledge. We decided we used quite, let's say, reliable instrument, already tested with good parameters, etc. For example, it was one question: in addition to water and sun, what gas do plants need to carry out the photosynthesis? Yeah, and only 52 approximately % right answers only that this is carbon dioxide.
Only 50%. So
yeah, around approximately 50%. Around 40% oxygen, 5% carbon monoxide, and 2% nitrogen. So different, you see. And for example, next one, this is not directly with chemistry, but anyway, it's connected with devices. It was arranged in different blocks, including chemistry, physics, and astronomy, geology, etc. And for example, the question was, what kind of device is used for measuring wind speed? Wind speed. Anemometer, obviously. Only 19% correct answers. 19. Barometer, 55%.
Oh,
how it's possible to barometer? This is for pressure, in order to measure pressure. Pluviometer, 2%. You see?
I think they would answer correct if the option would be wind meter.
Maybe, and some other interesting. For example, most nutrients pass into the blood in the small intestine. Again, around 50%. Correct answers only. Stomach 30%, large intestine 20%, urinary bladder 6%, etc. And what is again interesting? Okay, this one? Which organ produces bile? Bile.
Liver.
Yeah, obviously liver, but it's only 16% correct answers. University students.
Oh.
Just let's say they quite fresh with being at gymnasium studying science, etc. And for example, other answers: pancreas 72%, stomach 10%, small intestine 2%.
Interesting. Well, you know what, Vincentas, here, if a student was lazy at school and didn't master chemistry or physics or something, and then somehow changed their mind and decided to go to the university, study, concentrate in this subject, nevertheless, they have an opportunity to take actually the very classes they had in school. But this time they have to pay. So if you didn't take seriously physics in school, you have an opportunity to take the same content of physics at university. But now you are considered adult, young man or woman, right? You have to pay for this. Or pay for this. And I think that this is smart. And what I report about the technology, modern technology and traditional technology. I think that modern, in English there are two words: modern meaning contemporary, happening nowadays. And there is one fancy word, modern. Modern is kind of more like fashionable, which is popular, which is in fashion, not today. So I think that most these pedagogical measures, which are considered, like in our case, advanced Center for Advanced Technology in Education and modern, in fact, they are talking about what is in fashion, what is popular. And I would say, if we address the history of pedagogy, say 200 years back, these discussions has always been in this juxtaposition or opposition of modern versus traditional. It has always been, and the word modern does not necessarily mean that these measures are effective. Just like anything new, just being new doesn't necessarily mean that it is better. It is just newer. Okay, but to see whether it really works in school just needs some time.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, because, for example, again, I said that what does it mean modern? And for example, just simple experiment, for example, pre-test, post-test design, let's say, and offers explaining what is modern. We used, let's say, PBL, yeah, project-based learning. Okay, and another, let's say, group was traditional group. What is traditional? And in this traditional, traditional construct, it's everything: lectures, classes, reading, I don't know, everything. For example, and I am asking, okay, Socratic dialogue, is it traditional or modern? In order to perform normal dialogue with arguments, etc., or to perform, let's say, fun, enjoyable lecture, it's art. Yeah, it's not. What does it mean traditional in this context? For me, it's not clear, because and moreover, it's not measurable. For example, how to measure this traditional approach?
Yes,
because it's construct. Lectures, explanation, demonstration, for example, or some simple experiments also. And for example, if you're arguing that, okay, is it included, for example, lab work, is it included in this traditional approach? Yes, students perform some lab tasks, some lab activities. Okay, is it traditional or modern?
Yeah, and this continue what I said about tradition, about modern being a synonym to fashionable. I can also add that traditional doesn't mean old, and traditional doesn't mean bad or less effective. So stick to tradition is also can be a good choice, reasonable choice.
Yeah, okay. For example, if you want to compare, let's say, effectiveness or some impact, never mind. Okay, but you just take a concrete thing. For example, okay, it was lecture, or just lecturing during some period of time. And on another side, or another group, for example, it was students or participants created project or worked on the project. Yeah, but project work and, for example, lecturing. More or less, it's clear what we are going to compare.
Yeah.
Or to test, but not to say this was traditional group and this was modern approach.
Well, probably, Vincentas, if you call your grand proposal developing traditional, so you are less likely to to win. But if you stated clearly that we are developing advanced, modern, effective, which still should be proved.
Just an example from my previous course with students, second year master students, and we discussed about different because the module is educational technologies and innovations, etc., and something about, let's say, different platforms. Currently, it's quite, let's say, burning issue, online platforms, etc., learning at distance, remotely, etc. And you see how many words here: remote education, online education, virtual one, internet-based. Oh my Lord, it's everything, it's mixed together. And quite often it's not possible to recognize what is going and what we are speaking about, etc. But okay, and I asked students, what do you think robots, is it modern or traditional? And they say, oh, stupid professor, what he is asking, yeah? And I said, do you know that then the first time the term robot was mentioned? No. I said, exactly 100 years ago. It was in, last year. It was 2020, yeah, 21, and 100 years ago. Yeah, in 1920. First time this term was introduced, the term robot. And the question is quite interesting. Is it modern or traditional? But never mind. Okay, let's. We already started about this. Okay. Often, let's say, the established practice continues. It is possible to say we discuss traditional, and the former, for example, former student becomes a teacher. She works as she was taught at school. It means based on previous own practice, experience, and his parents can't help much either. And what to do for a student? For example, a typical parental statement that has been heard more than once. I just want to read. Nothing, baby. I didn't understand anything in this science, chemistry either. And now for me, that chemistry is completely bird language. It's normal here that you don't understand anything.
Well, from my side, as here as now immersed into English environment, I wouldn't say that chemistry is a bad word. Chemistry actually is a popular word, and it is used as a synonym of good, sometimes romantic relationships. Say two presidents of countries, they meet, and then journalists are writing, so good chemistry between them. Good chemistry between them, meaning that they reach understanding and that there was a good interaction. So chemistry is can be different, but yeah, that's what we these stereotypes of bad chemistry. They from generation they can sustain, they can be passed, and there's just stereotype of chemistry being something bad, boring, unmanageable, unmasterable. So you just cannot easily, and if someone is heard of as chemist, so oh my gosh, he is probably a genius, or she is just smart. Yes, of course, smart. But how to break this vicious circle and how to make a person excited about chemistry? I think that the main and very important role belongs to a teacher. Just like, say in my case, well, my parents, they had very elementary knowledge of chemistry. Just it was in school, and teacher who was able to ignite this sparkle, who managed to interest me. Otherwise, in chemistry, maybe popular something. Well, there is a problem, yes, and same here in the United States, where chemistry has a stereotype of this. These are questions that cannot be just solved problem that cannot be solved at once here. There probably collaboration is necessary between teachers and some probably inventing some new terminology. Probably, Vincentas, you know about green chemistry, and green chemistry is a popular term as well in Lithuania. I think to me it was a genial, just a genius solution. So knowing that chemistry is boring, just stereotype of chemistry being boring and moreover dangerous to mankind and to environment and so forth. Some smart chemist invented this word, green chemistry. Green chemistry. It's such
in addition, I remember my, let's say, my experience as a teacher. It was in 1991. I started to work at school as chemistry teacher, and let's say maybe for 5 years, etc. Before another job position. And after some period of time, I returned back to school, and again I worked with students. But I remember that we had, let's say, having in mind, let's say, that time, we had a lot of different chemicals in lab. Mm-hmm. I mean, in secondary school, it was not limited. In addition, I brought many, let's say, many compounds, many chemicals from university, because I asked my colleagues, okay, please help me. I need, mainly I remember for organic chemistry course, because some let's say some reactions you need some different substances. It's not typical for secondary school, right? But later on, let's say around 2000 and later on, obviously due to safety reasons, etc., this let's say assortment was limited at some extent, and schools lost possibility, teachers lost possibility, for example, to perform different experiments, different lab works, etc., etc. Okay, some was, let's say, covered by using ICT, by involving ICT, like virtual experiments, obviously. But maybe it's not enough. But it's not the point. I want to say that, okay, we're discussing, it's boring, maybe it's not interesting subjects. Obviously, I think differently, but anyway. On the other side, this is not our goal to have all students motivated and interested in chemistry. Obviously not. Maybe exists some like red line, I would say, that we can reach.
Yeah, I agree. When you were describing your story, your experience with chemical compounds, Vincentas, I caught myself on the thought that we passed a similar way. When I was at school, the teacher that I mentioned, who was the reason why I chose chemical profession, so she trusted me, and when I asked, she gave me some compounds to home that I took home, including some of them that could be kind of aggressive, like hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, but she trusted me, and at that time, probably I was already in 7th grade, serious enough that I took these safety precautions seriously, and so nothing happened. Yeah, so of course, it's always more interesting, and it's lively and more effective in this case to deal with real chemical experiments rather than observe them in the virtual laboratory simulated on screen. I agree. Well, there are questions that cannot be simply answered here. Of course, how to ignite, how to prime a person to stimulate him or her study chemistry. So we probably the whole history of chemistry education is the history of trials and errors. So try this and that's no, let's organize this in a series. From the theory we see that this measure would be effective. In fact, we tried and in fact it fails. No, it's not. Let's try another measure and so forth and so forth. Is there another way? Well, I don't know. That's why if the universal pedagogical measure was found, probably the subsequent research wouldn't be necessary. And as to is it our duty, is it our goal to motivate about chemistry? Again, it's up to the person who tries to analyze the situation. From one side, at university, it's purely, especially at university, when a person earns money and he or she decides to go to the university, so they pay money, instructors provide the knowledge. The university provides the knowledge and activities to master the subject. In this situation, is it our goal to motivate students to learn? A university student, college student to learn? Not sure. It is implied, it is supposed that at this age a person is adult and motivated enough and self-motivated enough. At school, again, if it were, say, Belarusian school, I don't know how the situation many years has passed, but at my time, so 20 years ago, the teacher was just his duty to, yes, motivate students, to make them study, make them work. Not so in as for pupils or students in high school here in the United States. The minimum of requirements is that this person who is present at your in your classroom, he or she must not disrupt the general discipline. But you cannot, in fact, you cannot actually even demand something, because just everybody is here fixed, concerned about human rights, child's rights, and so forth. And my son was studying here at the high school, and he often recalls a guy, his classmate, and whenever the teacher asked, "Hey Bob, where's your homework?" and this guy kind of lazily and just indifferently said, "I forgot." So he forgot to bring or to complete the homework. So in this situation, little can be done.
Yeah, but Uladzimir, this is approximately, at some extent, the same. For example, my recent experience working with master students, second year, for example, master students, in December we had the final lectures, and they needed to present individual work, like project, related to particular educational system in some countries, for example, from Latin America, or from, if I remember well, somebody prepared about Canada or Mexico, etc. And one student said, "No, currently I am not able to present because this is lunchtime for me." Yeah, lunchtime for me. She's working. Yeah, it's, let's say, what you can not. It's not possible to say anything, because, yeah, students right.
Yeah. And,
freedom.
Yeah, freedom, and probably, Vincentas, you remember Soviet times when in every class, say when the quarter ended, usually our teacher, she took the class journal and she just read our grades for the quarter, just in classroom, publicly, forever. So this and this, say 5, this and this, 4, they said, so A, B, C. It's something that cannot be just imagined in an American school, because the grade is absolute secret. It can be communicated only to the person who earned this grade, but never announced publicly.
Yeah,
no.
the same in Lithuania now. The same.
Oh, probably you remember what in Russian it sounded as "ekran uspevаемости." It means that the table which will visit all the pupils, all the students in the
like
classroom.
like a poster.
Yes, and it was on the wall, and everyone could approach, come and read. Aha, I am doing on A, and this guy doing on C. Aha, so I'm better. So in this case, and of course, there's dilemma. From one side, it is of course violation of privacy, maybe, and frustration for people who are failing the course. On the other side is a stimulus for competition and for perfection, to work better. I don't know. There's probably should be some reasonable compromise, optimum solution between them. And competition, but again, so here, both at university and at school, you can only provide positive evaluation, positive encouragement. Oh, you did well, it was great. But at the same time, if you praise someone very energetic in this positive evaluation, you can somehow denigrate those who are failing, who performed worse. So there should always be attentive and careful in all this.
It's not so easy, particularly nowadays. For example, when working mainly, for example, in Lithuania, at least at university, previous semester totally fully online, and this spring semester also it is expected to have online in full. And in my understanding, this is okay. Obviously, there are some advantages, obviously, but at the same time, a lot of disadvantages. That, for example, I'm not sure about quality in general, and also, let's say, students' position in general. It's okay for us. It's flexible. I don't need to go to university. I'm sitting at home. I'm doing something, drinking coffee, eating, etc., and studying at the same time. Okay. Returning back to our, let's say, backbone of our discussion about chemistry, that it's difficult and boring. What do you think about, let's say, roots of this problem? Maybe it's somehow at primary school level. Why I am saying this? For example, we performed relatively a lot of studies with primary school teachers and also students. And in our plans, we have some ideas to continue in this direction. But for example, quite recent study, approximately 120 primary school teachers were involved in this study, empirical study. And for example, we asked about, let's say, what, according to their opinion, the most common research with students or preferred activity with students, research activity, practical activity. And the majority of teachers, let's say, based on answers, we have three, let's say, positions: healthy lifestyle, environmental protection, and ecology. This is on the top. Let's say around 25%, 30%, etc. And less often, for example, students do research on vegetation, it means flora, fauna, physical phenomena, and very rarely students do research related to agriculture or effects of chemicals on plants and animals. and students rarely explore soil, minerals, and rocks, like geological component. Yeah, you see, this is let's say chemistry, chemical component, physics component below, and only this. Okay, I think that healthy lifestyle, environmental issues, and mainly nowadays sustainability, sustainable development issues, ecology, etc. This is mainly like integral topics. Yeah, it's maybe much more easier to access, to perform different activities, for example, like projects, for example, healthy food, healthy eating. Yeah. And recently in November we had our national conference, teachers conference, and a lot of presentations were related to such activities, like out of school activities, for example, non-formal activities, for example, health eating week, physical activity, etc., etc. And I think that somehow, and for example, in addition, the most frequently used methods related to science education at primary school level, the most frequently used are involvement of students in practical work activities, demonstration of experiments, attempts to link science content with the daily life of students, and to organize group work of students. And for example, so rarely incorporate technology or encourage research activities, as we understand. I mean, students' research activities to observe something, to test something, doesn't matter, in simplest way, to meet, for example, or to take into account individual differences of students, etc. And my somehow understanding is that, and also at some extent I am familiar with some studies abroad, some international studies in different countries, and the focus is at primary school level, that our, let's say, primary school teachers are not well prepared or not adequately prepared to teach science. What do you think?
I think it's a problem. I think that it should be somehow differentiated. At old school, when I was studied at university, so we had how to say, department or faculty of chemistry and biology, faculty of physics and mathematics, faculty of theological faculty, and so forth. And we, each of these faculties, trained future teachers of respective subjects. At the same time, we had a separate faculty, that's pedagogy and methodology of primary education, and this primary education embraced, and it included everything which are related to this age group, this 1 through 3rd, first through 3rd grade. So this system, I think this system from one side, to me, probably was more effective than current American system, because here we have at school, we have science teacher, and this science teacher includes everything. So the teacher is supposed to be more or less competent in physics and chemistry and mathematics, not mathematics, physics, chemistry, geography, biology, and it all unites. It is all united in the word science teacher.
Is it at primary school level?
No, this is at high and middle school level, not at primary. It seems to me that at primary level, the situation is the same. Some of Scientific components are, of course, incorporated into the program, but in general, I don't know. It depends on the goal. If we set the goal to prepare a chemist on the output, this preparation should begin from elementary level and then through the whole 12 years, and to have not a specialist, but chemical enthusiast on the output. I think at the same time, I think that it's not possible, or it's not realistic, simply because the system at the primary level, I think there's not yet specialization at this period of time, at this stage of child development. And probably the idea is to provide some general developments, so the general education, or how we still
right, but on the other hand, let's say primary school curriculum more or less composed from two components, let's say from two both big, let's say, parts. It's a social component, social education component, humanities, and science, let's say, science component.
Yeah,
obviously in integrated way, but some teachers, I'm not going to say that's majority, but relatively big part of teachers trying to avoid this science. Yeah, and you prefer to teach some social things, let's say, language, music, arts, etc., but avoiding science.
I think there is some kind of universal phenomenon. Say chemistry and biochemistry and biology, and respectively chemists, biologists, and biochemists. And there is a general opinion that usually chemists do not go into biochemistry because they do not know biology well, whereas biologists, they courageously go into biochemistry because they don't know how awful chemistry is. Probably here's something like that also exists in this situation, who the students, future teachers who really liked science, they chose specialized profiles, like I will be chemistry teacher, I will be physics teacher, biology teacher, and so forth. And those who didn't have this inclination, they chose that I would go into child education. And in this position in child education, they try to somehow protect themselves from this awful science, including chemistry and so forth. There are stereotypes.
Uladzimir, in addition, I just remembered from just very fresh experience from today morning, because we performed the exam with students, with first-year master students on research methodology course, and they asked about next module, because next module in spring semester we will start, let's say, relatively soon, in beginning of February, and it's first module. It's more general. It means educational research types, research focus, criteria. What does science mean? Survey methodology, focus groups, Delphi technique, etc., different more or less general things. And second module is more oriented to educational diagnostics. It's including statistical approach, statistical analysis, etc. And they said, yes, please be, let's say, prepared or motivated to study more in more details, more deeply, because we will need more, let's say, we should be in line, or should be, mathematics should become our friend, good friend, etc. They said, oh no, You see, this is immediate reaction to this. No, 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 no. No mathematics. No.
There are some common stereotypes about what is possible if this is present. For example, my example about chemist, biochemist, and biologist, and here statistics in the preparation of teachers. I recall I was teaching chemistry to a lot of international students. By international students here in the United States, we understand that people who came to study from other countries, they are international. And this guy, a student from China, when he heard how I said that I love chemistry and I love chemistry, so he then approached me and just asked in private, so Professor, you said that you love chemistry. If so, why didn't you go into chemical industry? So for his opinion was that if you really love some science, you should go into something associated with science and not to spend time teaching this science. Okay, there is a stereotype, of course, I try to explain, but you know how people think, how they believe. From my side, about teachers and statistics and research in their life, I would say that we here at Center for Advanced Technology Education, we had teachers as partners, but I don't know teachers who would conduct research, who would plan research, conduct research, and apply these statistics on their own without us. Usually when we cooperated with them, with school teachers, we developed the whole research program, activities, and they only assisted us in classroom. Without them, we wouldn't be able to implement our plans. Without us, they wouldn't be able to put everything in system and to handle their results. So this is the division of labor, so to say, was
right. But please remember that one, let's say, of the main competence of teacher is teacher as researcher. Teacher as researcher, she or he should be able to perform at least simple studies, simple research, analyzing, let's say, own activity of students, or, as you said, to be involved in some research groups, for example, etc., etc. And okay, it's nice step-by-step approaching to our last part of our discussion. And it's my typical and quite, I think, burning issue. This is teacher education, or as in American, English teacher training. I don't like this term training, but anyway, let it be. In Lithuania, a few years ago, it was politically announced, like national idea, that teacher profession should be, and will be up to 2025 the most prestigious profession. This was one of the national idea, because it was like a simple competition to elaborate, to decide on some national ideas, and one of them was teacher profession, the most prestigious profession. And another thing that it's not only in Lithuania, but at least in Europe, quite large discussion, obviously it's continuous discussion, permanent discussion, training of a new generation of teachers. What do you mean? Is it common somehow in states to discuss about new generation? What does it mean, new generation?
Good question, Vincentas. I'm afraid that it's all again about something being fashionable but instead said new or modern. So I just reminded the standards that were adopted in 2013, they are called New Generation Science Standard. New Generation Science Standard. So these bombastic words. So a new teacher.
And Uladzimir, by the way, in your native country, you know what? This is also quite common terminology. New generation, new standards, new generation standards.
Yes.
For example, because I discussed with Elena Vasilevskaya from Belarusian State University, and quite common term, new generation of teachers. What is meaning?
Well, I'm sorry for it's in a minute.
Yes. Okay. When you're off the phone. Okay. I don't have it.
I'm sorry, was interrupted for a minute. So this new generation, of course, it sounds very well, but if we analyze what actually the new generation means, and every next generation coming after us is new. So new generation. I don't know how to comment on this. So the thing is, as I understand, what is understood by this new generation is that teacher profession should become prestigious and respected and so forth and so forth. I would say, to me, it would be hard to achieve this goal for some objective and subjective reasons. Objective reason, say, why teacher was a respected figure, say 100 years ago, was that teacher was one of the main sources of information for students. And nowadays, teacher doesn't have a monopoly for this information because people are reading news, internet, so it's so quick, and teacher cannot hold this competition in this situation, cannot compete with the internet, and teacher is always the same, whereas internet always is tempting, always new and also provoking, so it's hard to meet the competition. That's subjectively. Subjectively and materially, to get some prestige, teachers should make enough living, earn real money, and this money and teacher's salary can be compared, can be on a high level. I recently read a publication of year 2012 by Scott Klimek here in the US, published in Journal of Education and Learning, and the title was Prestige, Status and Esteem and the Teacher Shortage. So they conducted a survey of students, 1,200 pupils were surveyed, high school students, and they were asked how they estimate the prestige of the teacher. So the conclusions of these publications were that that students would probably choose teacher profession due to its status in the society, because despite of low salaries, teacher is still respected in society. At the same time, that they wouldn't choose the teacher's profession because of the salary, because the salary is very modest. So in this case, I don't know what to say here. And this aspect, probably probably you know or you watched such American movie a year, I think 2003, and this this movie had the title School of Rock. School of Rock,
Yes,
heavy rock music style. So the guy who is just in trouble, so not making money, he was fired from everywhere. He didn't have money to pay for his rent. He somehow, a principal of school located nearby, just calling his roommate or his landlord, calling landlord and inviting him for a temporary teacher position at school. And somehow this guy responds using telephone, and he fired from everywhere, is accepted to this teacher position in school. And here the first day, so he behaves kind of weirdly, and everybody around just surprised, who is that? And then this guy just teaches school students the rock music, appreciation of heavy rock music, death metal, disco, so, but mainly rock. And then this guy organizes kids, and they give a big concert. And so in this case, the prestige of traditional teacher here, as showcased in this movie, they are so ambiguous. So in this example, actually what it says, the movie says that actually prestige of a teacher is not so high in the society, and the society wants something original, something not boring, like this rock musician guy.
Yeah, sure. And in addition to this topic, how would you rate the prestige of teaching profession in the United States as a country?
I would say that I just agree with this publication by this guy, this recent publication, that I would say that the status of teacher in society is still fairly high, and parents respect teachers, mostly in general teachers. But at the same time, financial side of this is still to be improved. I would say to me that their salary, they are still modest. So it's a paradoxical situation, probably like situation, say, with physicians in Belarus. Their status is high, so everybody respects physicians, doctors, surgeons, and so forth. So, but in fact, their salaries are still not so high. Kind of similar situation with physicians in Belarus and teachers in the United States, I would say.
Based on your, let's say, on your personal experience, as you said about your, let's say, teacher, secondary school, and also based on my experience, maybe it would be possible to prove that despite, for example, a subject as chemistry or physics, we had good or best teachers in our life, in our, let's say, experience, and based on that, we decided to continue with this area, for example, chemistry or physics, despite subjects or
despite of all.
yeah, because teacher was like a best example. Maybe it's personality, teacher's personality. This is the main thing.
I think to the main extent, probably 90% it is up to the personality. I know here in the United States, a couple of my acquaintances, they left with teacher education, they left school for something more lucrative, to make more money because they needed money and they both, one guy left physics teacher career for engineering, so he is now in engineering business, and another woman, she left her school teacher career she changed it for science, educational science. There are still, yes, people who just enjoy, if we can characterize it this way, teacher at school. Yes, it's their choice. We can also ask if there is a vocation, maybe this commitment to your profession. Again, not very strict pedagogical term, if pedagogical, what actual vocation is. I understand vocational school, but it's not vocation how we understand it. Vocation. We can say, well, it's how a person characterizes this. If someone says, I had a vocation for teaching chemistry, we have to believe, because it's just their opinion. Whereas at the same time with this vocation, I can say only that certain people under circumstances at certain time and in certain careers can produce certain outcomes, so to say. So actually what I've just said, it doesn't have much meaning, but that's what I mean by a vocation. Okay. It's just personal choice.
Yeah,
and personality.
Yes, it's nice. But one more thing, from systemic point of view, I prefer systemic approaches and systemology, and I like to distribute the different things in different, let's say, levels. And for example, how to say in English, or maybe in American English, doesn't matter, teacher stray, teacher, it means that who is not intentionally, or he or she had no intention to become a teacher. It's like accidental teacher. For example, it was not another choice, or due to different circumstances, yeah, okay, why not? I would enter pedagogical, let's say, study program, take pedagogical study program, and then become maybe a teacher. It's I am saying it's accidental, or let's say a child who was born accidentally, not planned.
Yes.
How to name this person?
Do you mean the teacher without actually pedagogical?
Without initial intention to become a teacher.
Oh, probably yes, accidental.
Accidental, yeah.
Probably in this case, incidental teacher.
Yeah, okay, right. And the next level, it's like teacher artificial, amateur, yeah, who he or she perform his role normally, let's say, technically correct, but let's say without soul, without an appropriate soul. And next level, teacher professional. Okay, it's more or less on the top. It's first Holy Trinity. And next one is another Trinity. On the top we have Guru. Teacher as Guru, Mother Teresa. And my question is, do you have a good recipe how to become a good teacher?
That's a very good question. Usually Americans say, oh, that's a good question. It means that they actually don't know what to say and how to answer this question. So it is kind of how to proceed. Well, it's
Uladzimir, I shortly explain one example. I started, but I didn't finish it. A few years ago, we had study programs, so-called educology in our version, or education, like general study program. And I remember around 40 students entered to the first year, first course. And I remember discussion. I asked them, do you have an intention now, or did you have before entering university to become a teacher? No, zero. All answered no. More or less, at some extent, all of them were accidentally. It was not another choice, was not another possibility. Different reasons, different, let's say, causes, but anyway, no initial. So, and my question is it possible through 4 years, I mean bachelor level, during this period of time, to reverse somehow their mind, to prepare a good teacher from the accidental one to the at least to a good one?
Okay, I can say that it's more possible in American university system than, say, in Belarus, I don't know, in Lithuania. What I mean, so here, when I just came here and just asked, so whom your university prepare, chemistry teachers or physics teachers or so forth, and the person whom I asked, he was one of former East European immigrants who teaches chemistry here. So he said, "It's a good question. People don't go here to study for chemistry or physics teachers. People go to the university." And I was puzzled. It was so just interesting question, but it's in fact it is. They go to university. They don't train for teaching. Okay. So what I mean that in American university it is more possible. Here, when you enter the university, actually you have much more affordances, much more opportunities to complete your program. You just taken classes, and then you can shape these classes, apply these classes, credits that you earned to a specific program, say teacher program. If at this point, so 1 year, 2 years, you decide that pedagogical career is not for you, you don't have to apply to this pedagogical program. Whereas in Belarus, I remember when I entered the university from the very beginning, be prepared that you have to study all 4 years, and you have to decide from the very beginning who you will become. Teacher, so you enter and you study for years to become a teacher. At this point, everything can happen. Someone can get disappointed in the future pedagogic career. Someone, I assume that it's possible, can decide that yes, pedagogy is for him or for her. So everything can happen in this here. And how on this level to proceed from incidental children? So the whole spectrum, okay, what it can happen, everything can happen here. So the human development, ways are so unpredictable and incidental, yes.
Yeah, it's really, I agree. And I mentioned again, returning back to the Professor Karapetyan opinion, he said finally, anyway, development exists, development continues. And it's let's hope that everything will be all right. Okay, Uladzimir, thanks you so much for our good discussion. I hope that not only for us, but maybe for somebody else, this discussion will be useful, somehow interesting, and we shared relatively different ideas and different issues and different problems, and at some extent it was, at least my opinion, interesting. And on behalf of our center and personally, I want to wish you big success in this 2022 year for your academic life and in your academic career. And as far as I know, you changed a little bit, at least you changed your position. Yeah, this is again argument or proof that everything is changing or under changes. All our life continues to change, and also in your personal life, for your family, etc., for your relatives, friends, colleagues, etc. And maybe you also want to say shortly something from your side.
Yeah, I thank you, Vincentas, for inviting me to this conversation. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I also wish you the best in your professional career, in scientific educational research. And in your person, I wish all the best to Lithuanian teachers and researchers, and to the European teachers, moreover, not only Lithuania, but also Belarus and other countries as well. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Uladzimir, and I hope that we will find some more opportunities at some time, somewhere, at some extent, maybe to discuss again.
Thank you.